Hello everyone. This video I'm going to talk about organic chemistry. So what is organic chemistry first of all? As it says here, it is a branch of science dealing with the element carbon and its many properties. So a little bit misleading is this word organic. So if you go to the store or you go to a restaurant, it may be advertised organic. Our food is organic. So what the heck does that mean? Well, that organic means something different from this organic. This organic, when it comes to chemistry, means, for the most part, carbon. In the molecule, there is a carbon backbone, or else most of the element is made up of carbon. Now, the carbon that you see at, say, a restaurant when you're buying food or something like that, that carbon means naturally grown or not grown with pesticides or herbicides or some unnatural chemical. So don't get those two organics confused. We're talking about molecules who have a lot of carbon. It says here most of the compounds found in living things other than water are organic. So a lot of times if you're a real science nerd like me, you keep up with the search of other planets in the universe or in the galaxy with carbon life forms, with organic life forms. So they're looking for carbon and other molecules associated with organic chemistry in the atmosphere. About 30% of an organism's dry weight or biomass is composed of carbon found in the body's organic molecules. So dry weight literally means whenever you take away the water and all the other stuff, 30% of it is organic. So 30% is actually a lot. It may not seem like a lot, but it is. So carbon helps to make the four major groups of organic macromolecules. So these are four very important molecules that you need to know. Remember, you're going to be quizzed on these molecules. I'm going to ask you over and over again to name these four macromolecules. Not only that, but eventually I'm going to ask you other questions. How do they work? What do they look like? That kind of thing. The original source for carbon in all life forms is carbon dioxide, CO2, through photosynthesis. So plants photosynthesize, which means they make energy from light and water and carbon dioxide. They breathe in carbon dioxide, and not just plants, but some unicellular organisms also. And so then if you are higher up on the food chain, you may eat those plants, or you may not eat them directly. You may eat something else that ate that plant. Either way, that carbon is being transferred and transformed over and over again. So this is a real fun experiment. It took place in 1953. I like talking about this experiment, called the Miller-Urey experiment. What they did is they took inorganic substances. So if it's not organic, then it's inorganic. So maybe you could say without carbon. Usually simpler molecules are inorganic that were thought to have been present in the Earth's early atmosphere: H2O vapor, H2, NH3, and CH4, and created organic amino acids and oils. So amino acids make up proteins, and oils make up fats, triglycerides, really a whole bunch of different things. CO2 and CH4 are not considered organic compounds, even though they contain carbon. So that's why it's not a perfect thing to say any molecule with carbon is organic, because some are not organic but still have carbon.
Mr. Kinman.
So what Miller and Urey wanted to figure out basically was if you could take the smaller pieces of the puzzle, the inorganic molecules, and if we predict the conditions of the atmosphere on the planet early on in the atmosphere based on other evidence, such as lightning, volcanoes, that sort of thing, but mainly lightning was looked at here. Could you go from the smaller pieces of the puzzle, the smaller blocks, to the bigger blocks? Can you go from inorganic to organic? So since most life is made up of organic molecules, can those be created naturally in early Earth conditions? So that's what they wanted to do. And so here is their experiment. Now this is an important experiment, one that I would be very familiar with if I were you. Let me do that one time. Okay. So in this experiment, you have a boiling chamber with water. Boiling water adds water vapor to the artificial atmosphere. So this is something that we know to happen today. Therefore, we would say that it has always happened in Earth's history. There is a law that we talk about in Earth and space science and in geoscience that is called the it's not a law, the theory of uniformitarianism. So the theory of uniformitarianism basically means the processes that happen on the Earth today, since the laws of physics and the other laws of chemistry and biology do not change, therefore those processes must have happened years and years and years in the past. Okay? So what happens today must have happened then. So we can take things that we see today and predict what it looked like then. I'm sorry for my speech. It gets a little crazy at times. So they boil this water with heat. Now, what might be the source of that heat? The sun. The sun boils the water, evaporates it into the artificial atmosphere, and then here we have an electric spark that simulates, there we go again, a lightning storm. And so we have these two anodes here, and in this atmosphere we have CH4, NH3, H2, and H2O, inorganic molecules that were likely to have existed in the atmosphere. Mix it with lightning. So what happens when lightning strikes these molecules? Think of Lego pieces or just blocks. And if any of you have ever played with Legos or blocks, or if you have younger siblings that currently do, if you have something built, you break it apart, you try to rebuild it, it might look differently, it might look like something else. Or maybe you just intentionally want to build something up else. The pieces get scattered out and they join to other pieces. So the energy from the spark powers reactions among molecules thought to be present in Earth's early atmosphere. So what they found, or what the next did, was they condensed the water. They simulated rain, basically. When the hot gases in the spark chamber are cooled, water vapor condenses, and any soluble molecules present are dissolved, and so they have a reservoir to catch that water. And so everything that was broken down and reformed here was dissolved in the water, which flowed down into another container, and what they observed were a collection of organic molecules that appeared only after a few days. And so how did they know there were organic molecules in there? Well, one observation they made was that the water had actually changed colors. Why did it change colors? Well, you had a new mixture of molecules in there. All right, so very cool experiment, one that I wish that I could try, but do not have the setup for. But very interesting, I think. And so we have important properties of carbon for biology. So hopefully you learned in chemistry some of carbon's important features. One is being it has 4 valence electrons. So if you look for carbon on the periodic table, you should see it in group 4. And if you remember, if it's in group 4, that lets you know that it has 4 valence electrons. So since carbon has 4 valence electrons, it forms 4 covalent bonds. This allows carbon to bond with a variety of molecules and form molecules with an almost infinite variety of shapes and functions. This would explain why most of life's molecules are carbon-based, are organic. There's no other element that we know of that can do it quite like carbon does. You know, there's some hypotheses that you could do it with other elements like silicon. Silicon is just below carbon, also in group 4, but it just doesn't work quite as well as carbon does. A lot of astrophysicists that ponder other worlds think, well, is there a possibility that there could be other life forms based on something like silicon? But nobody obviously knows for sure. It's never been observed or measured to have happened. Another important characteristic is that carbon atoms are small. Because carbon is a small atom, its valence electrons are near the nucleus. This means that when carbon forms covalent bonds, the bonds are strong. This makes carbon an excellent building for material for life, which would explain why silicon in the same group is not as good as carbon, because silicon is quite a bit bigger than carbon, which would mean that its valence electrons are farther away from its nucleus. And carbon is abundant on Earth. Carbon isn't the most abundant element on Earth, but there is a lot of carbon found on the planet. This makes it a good choice for building block of life, for the building block of life. Okay, so organic macromolecules. So I'm gonna stop this video. That way I have enough time to get into the macromolecules.